Greetings and welcome back to our daily English news on TMH Live with me, Delithna Dawalko. Our headlines for today include Tigray's Regional Council declares 3 days of mourning for victims of the continued aerial bombardments in the Tigray region, which directly leads us to our next headline is the Ethiopian government continuing their drone attacks in the city in the city of Tigray, killing 2 civilians and injuring dozens in the latest strike on Tuesday. Oromo Federalist Congress calls for the negotiated resolutions of civil war in the current state of Ethiopia. As we move on to our main news for today, the Council of the Regional State Government of Tigray declares 3 days of mourning for the victims of the continued aerial bombardments on the Tigray region. The Assembly of Tigray Council said the Ethiopian regime has intensified its brutal attacks against civilians using drones and airstrikes, and in the last 10 days alone, over 300 civilians have been killed and many more wounded. The days of mourning to remember those killed by the aerial bombardments will be held from the 13th of January, which is tomorrow, until the 15th of January 2022. The Council of the Regional State of Government of Tigray said the aerial bombings of civilians indicate that Abiy Ahmed's government and his allies have no interest in peace while claiming otherwise. Assembly of Tigray Council also passed a motion declaring atrocities and destruction committed by the fascist Ethiopian regime, the Eritrean invaders, and the expansionist Amhara forces on the people of Tigray as a genocide. The Assembly also encouraged the government of Tigray to work with greater vigor in order to make the use of the last traces of peace. Ethiopian drone strikes in the country's Tigray region on Tuesday has killed 2 civilians and injured a dozen others. The drone attack happened in Hawana, south of Tigray's capital, Ma'ala. An official and a doctor from the city's main hospital disclosed this on the weekend. Getachew Reda, member of Tigray Armed Forces Central Command, said AU Special Envoy Olusegun Obasanjo was in Ma'ala as part of his mission to seek peaceful solution to the crisis in the Horn of Africa. After the meeting took place, the drone attack happened a few minutes after his plane took off. Whether or not this was indeed a coincidence and an immaterial, it is not, he says, adding that it is all too clear that people in Arat Kilo are playing a dangerous game at the expense of the lives of millions of people. He expressed his dismay that the international community is busy expressing its deep concern while innocent people are being brutally killed. The drone attack in Hawana came following another strike that took place on Monday in the western Tigray town of Maitsebri, in which 17 people working at the flour mill lost their lives, and most of which were women. Monday's reported strike came on the same day that the U.S. President Joe Biden voiced concern about the continued violence in a phone call with the Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. Biden expressed concern that the ongoing hostilities, including recent airstrikes, continue to cause civilian casualties as well as suffering. According to a White House statement, World Health Organization Chief Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus also said on Twitter that he was deeply concerned about the reports of another drone strike in the capital in the city of Tigray, resulting in injuries and deaths of too many civilians as well. Listen to what he had to say.
Despite 14 metric tons, the base requirement for life-saving intervention is humanitarian access.
He continues in saying that he echoes that UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres' call for an end to the conflict in Ethiopia and for humanitarian aid to be urgently allowed into the region. The aid workers who spoke to AFP on Tuesday also said that the attack on the displaced people camp in Dadabit in northern western Tigray has killed 59 civilians, with one reporting and 138 wounded as well. The UN calls for immediate, free, and sustained movement of humanitarian workers and their supplies into the Tigray region. The UN made the call in a statement available and attributable to the spokesperson of the UN, Secretary General Stéphane Dujarric, in the wake of the drone strike that killed 57 IDPs in northwestern Tigray. 8 agencies suspended their operations in the area, according to the UN Emergency Response Agency, OSHA. Spokesperson Stéphane Dujarric confirmed that there's reduced movement of humanitarian agencies in northwestern Tigray, and here he is with some more on that.
We, along with our humanitarian partners, have reduced movements in the northwest zone of Tigray following the airstrikes that took place Friday night, which reportedly killed more than 50 people and injured many others. We also continue to call on all parties to the conflict to immediately facilitate the free and sustained movement of humanitarian workers and supplies into Tigray, including medical supplies to treat civilians injured in recent attacks. The Secretary General reiterates his call for an immediate cessation of hostilities, including airstrikes, and for all parties to adhere to their obligations under international humanitarian law to facilitate humanitarian access and to ensure the protection of civilians, including humanitarian actors, premises, and sites.
6.3 million people of Tigray are now facing acute food shortage as well as famine because of the genocidal war that's taking place in Ethiopia, including the humanitarian blockade that's been imposed on the northern part of Ethiopia, imposed on by the Ethiopian government as well as its allies. The Oromo Federalist Congress calls for the negotiated resolutions of the civil war currently in Ethiopia. The Oromo Federalist Congress yesterday released a statement discussing the event to the recent move by the government to drop the charges and release its leaders, including Baqala Garba and Jawar Mohammed, as well as the other oppositions on the 7th of January 2022. In the statement, the OFC argued that the arrest of its leaders was politically motivated and that they were held unlawfully on bogus charges designed to increase the ruling party's electoral fortune. The party expressed sadness over the atrocities on civilians in Oromia, Tigray, Benshangul, Gumuz, Afar, and Amhara regions. The party said it was optimistic about restoring peace through reconciliation, rebuilding Ethiopia through peaceful and negotiated resolution to the ongoing wars, particularly in Oromia, Benshangul, Gumuz, as well as Tigray, according to the statement. And the statement underlined that only a serious and genuine negotiation and dialogue among nations and nationalities of this country can lead to a lasting and peaceful and mutually advantaged coexistence. The statement also called for the establishment of an independent investigation body to uncover the truth regarding the assassinations of prominent Oromo artist Hachalu Hundessa. The U.S. tells its citizens to not travel to Ethiopia. A travel advisory released yesterday by the U.S. Department of State and Bureau of Consular Affairs notified U.S. citizens of 9 countries that are not supposed to travel to. And these are the ones you see on the screen: Jamaica, Indonesia, Ethiopia, Curacao, Canada, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Equatorial Guinea, and Aruba. Ethiopia is among the top 3 in the not to travel to countries of this year. An air brigade between Ethiopia and United Arab Emirates and Iran seemed some 140 flights by January 2022, supplying the government with drones as well as other weaponry. Ethiopia has devoted most of its scarce resources to the acquisition of unmanned combat aerial vehicles from a number of countries around the world. This has included Iran, which delivered at least 2 Mohajer 6s in August 2021, China, from which Ethiopia received 3 Wing Lung 1 in September 2021, and the United Arab Emirates, which deployed at least 6 of its own Wing Lung into the Harar Meida Air Base in November 2021. A number of Emirati-delivered drones also continues to serve and service in Ethiopia. Our final news for today is President Joe Biden's National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan's discussion in Ethiopia's Tigray crisis with Turkey. Jake Sullivan spoke on the phone with Ibrahim Kalin, who's the spokesperson and the chief advisor to the president of Turkey, which both discussed a wide range of issues, including the ongoing conflict and the war on Ethiopia's Tigray region. During this conversation, Sullivan stressed the critical need to support efforts to end this 14-month-long war. This comes as the U.S. President Joe Biden presses Abiy Ahmed to embrace the peace and not the civil war. Turkey has been one of the major supporters in this war and of Abiy Ahmed's blockade on Tigray's region. That concludes our news for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Goodbye.